At their peak, these faces reached tens of millions of homes every week. Then the studio doors closed behind them. No farewell, no explanation. Just an empty chair, an abandoned costume, and questions Hollywood preferred not to answer. For 14 classic television legends, fame became something more dangerous than failure, a contract that consumed their time, privacy, and identity. Some challenged networks, others surrendered fortunes or careers simply to reclaim control. And several learned that walking away did not end Hollywood's claim on their image. The hidden cost of escaping television's golden cage. Here is the hidden truth about why your favorite stars completely vanished. Number 1. Wayne Rogers. Wayne Rogers looked trapped inside television's biggest hit, yet the document binding him to MASH carried no signature at all. Rogers had joined the series expecting Trapper John to stand beside Hawkeye as an equal. As Alan Alda's character moved toward the center, Trapper received less room to develop. Rogers did not treat that shift as a betrayal. He read it as business. The producers had identified their most valuable narrative asset, and the ensemble would be arranged around it. The studio believed its contract preserved control. Rogers had objected to its morals clause and never signed it, a fact left unresolved. When he chose to leave after the third season, producers threatened legal action, only to discover little leverage they possessed. The actor they assumed was locked in had technically remained free. But Rogers did not disappear. He continued acting, starring in house calls, while developing investments and advising businesses. His victory was not escaping work. It was refusing to let one corporation define the limits of his work. Hollywood could tolerate a man exploiting a contractual oversight. What happened when a woman openly demanded compensation matching her value was harsher. Suzanne Summers would not find an unsigned page waiting for her, only 60 seconds of screen time, and a warning intended for every actress watching. Number 2. Suzanne Summers. Suzanne Summers did not stroll away from Three's Company. She asked to be paid like the man on the same hit, and the machinery around her career stopped. By 1980, Summers earned $30,000 an episode as Chrissy Snow. John Ritter earned 5 times that amount. They sought $150,000 per episode, plus a share of profits. ABC and the producers refused. When Summers missed tapings amid the dispute, her role was reduced to brief telephone scenes recorded separately from the cast. Then she was dismissed. The punishment extended beyond one program. Offers receded, and press coverage reduced a labor confrontation to a story about an actress becoming difficult. Summers said she had been ostracized, yet exclusion forced her to identify something the network had undervalued: her relationship with the audience. She performed in Las Vegas, returned to television, and became the face and co-owner of the Thighmaster business. Millions of units sold. The sitcom employee, whom executives considered replaceable, had converted recognition into an enterprise they did not control. Summers proved that rejection could become leverage, but resilience does not always look entrepreneurial. The next broadcaster greeted America with a calm voice, shifting from headlines to a chimpanzee without losing his smile. What viewers could not see was the emotional cost of making serenity appear effortless in the morning. Number 3. Dave Garroway. Dave Garroway's raised palm and quiet word, peace, made morning television feel unhurried. The contradiction was cruel. The man who taught America to relax was living with depression while helping NBC invent a format that never stopped moving. When Today began in 1952, no blueprint existed. Garroway moved from news to interviews, sponsor messages, and appearances with J. Fred Muggs, the program's chimpanzee companion. His manner made the transitions look natural. Behind that ease stood pre-dawn hours, live broadcast uncertainty, and the obligation to appear emotionally available before millions of viewers. In April 1961, his wife Pamela passed away after an overdose of prescription medication. Barbara Walters, a Today writer, recalled that Garroway was depressed and that the program's hours had worn on him. He left the show that June. This was not a disappearance. Garroway attempted work in educational television, radio, and local broadcasting. None restored the national position he had occupied each morning. His story is therefore not about weakness. It is about a medium demanding reassurance from a person whose reserves were already depleted. Television could exhaust a host through repetition. It could also provoke rebellion with one act of censorship. Soon, another late-night pioneer would discover that NBC had removed a harmless joke without telling him, and answer by leaving his chair while the cameras were running. Number 4. Jack Paar. Jack Paar's exit was not his retirement. It was a loss of control that lasted only weeks and became valuable publicity NBC could never have purchased. In February 1960, network censors removed a joke involving the initials WC, meaning water closet, without warning Paar. The material was mild by later standards. The offense was corporate interference. Next evening, Paar explained that there had to be a better way to earn a living, then walked away. Announcer Hugh Downs finished the program. The gesture looked spontaneous, but Paar had told Downs beforehand. It was emotional, theatrical, and effective. Newspapers followed his absence, viewers debated censorship, and NBC confronted the fact that its unpredictable host was the product audiences wanted. Paar returned on March 7 with a joke about having searched for a better living and failing to find one. He remained until 1962, then moved to a primetime program through 1965. The truth is sharper than the legend. He did not vanish after one censored joke. He demonstrated that departure itself could become negotiating power. Yet television leverage depended on personality. The next dispute involved percentages, outside employment, and a contract reaching beyond the soundstage. He played a man riding across the West, while Warner Brothers claimed half his outside earnings. Then he did what actors rarely dared to do. Number 5. Clint Walker. On screen, the hero of Cheyenne answered to no employer. Off-screen, Warner Brothers controlled his salary, restricted outside work, and claimed half of earnings beyond the series. Clint Walker had helped turn Cheyenne into television's first hour-long Western. His physique and reserved manner made the program recognizable, but the contract reflected a studio assumption. The company created the star, so the company could govern the career. Walker was paid less than the value his image generated, while Warner retained influence over films, recordings, and personal appearances. In 1958, he refused to continue under those terms. Production proceeded without him, and the studio introduced another Western lead rather than concede immediately. That response exposed the threat behind every long-term agreement. No performer was supposed to believe he was irreplaceable. Walker held his position. After months away, he returned with improved compensation and freedom for outside work. He completed Cheyenne, then moved into films, including The Dirty Dozen, before favoring a quieter life in the American West. His stand did not destroy the studio system, but it proved that presence could be matched by contractual resolve. The next performer faced a barrier no renegotiated percentage could remove. She entered a primetime detective series carrying the expectations of a community, then made Emmy history while executives monitored how much progress American advertisers would tolerate. Number 6. Gail Fisher. Gail Fisher broke television's hardest barriers, yet the trophy in her hands could not guarantee the next role. As Peggy Fair on Mannix, Fisher played a working mother rather than a servant or background figure. In 1970, she became the first black woman to win an Emmy for acting. Golden Globe victories followed. Those awards measured achievement. They did not measure how narrow the industry's imagination remained. When Mannix ended in 1975, Fisher did not abandon Hollywood. She continued working, but intermittently, in programs including Fantasy Island, General Hospital, Knight Rider, and Hotel. The distinction is essential. A sparse resume may look like withdrawal when it can reveal how few parts were being written and financed for a middle-aged black actress. Her life later included legal difficulties and reliance on self-medication. Those facts deserve clinical restraint, not moral judgment. Fame had made Fisher a symbol of progress, but symbolism offered no protection from illness, instability, or an employment system that celebrated a breakthrough without building a durable road beyond it. Her story leaves an uncomfortable equation. Being first can mean opening a door that closes again behind you. The next legend faced no shortage of offers. After 30 years behind America's most valuable desk, he discovered that the rarest luxury was not another contract, but the ability to remain silent. Number 7. Johnny Carson. Johnny Carson's final act was defined by what it refused to become. There was no comeback tour, no memoir, and no attempt to auction his privacy to viewers. By 1992, Carson had hosted The Tonight Show for 30 years. NBC's economy rested on the dependable audience delivered to advertisers. Yet he had watched television turn longevity into a trap. A host could remain until familiarity faded, allowing the network to extract one final season after another. Carson chose the date. On May 22, he delivered a farewell and left without converting retirement into another franchise. He made occasional appearances afterward, but rejected the specials and nostalgic return that executives expected. He sailed, played tennis, and guarded a private circle. Even his influence remained indirect. He quietly sent jokes to David Letterman. This was not defeat or exile. Carson possessed the financial security to make silence enforceable. That privilege separated him from performers who needed the industry long after the industry had reduced their options. His withdrawal was pragmatic, an exercise of control by a man whose profession required constant public availability. But another television icon had stepped away much earlier, when youth was her commercial identity. 15 years later, she returned inside a strange northwestern town, proving that leaving the spotlight can preserve something Hollywood believes it has already consumed. Number 8. Peggy Lipton. Peggy Lipton's disappearance was never as complete as the legend suggests, and her return became more enduring than the image she left behind. When the Mod Squad premiered in 1968, Julie Barnes turned Lipton into a symbol of television's packaged counterculture. Magazine covers emphasized composure and cool. Lipton had entered acting with shyness and a stutter. Celebrity required the performance of ease from someone who understood anxiety. After the series ended in 1973, she married Quincy Jones and placed acting aside while raising their daughters, Kidada and Rashida. She appeared in the 1979 reunion The Return of Mod Squad, so vanished is absolute. The hiatus represented a choice Hollywood rarely encouraged at the height of an actress's marketability. She allowed family life to take precedence over momentum. When the marriage ended, Lipton faced the uncertainty of returning older to a business that had sold her youth. Then Twin Peaks offered Norma Jennings, a mature woman carrying loyalties behind a diner counter. Lipton was no longer preserved as Julie Barnes. She had expanded beyond her. That is resilience without a courtroom or empire, the recovery of identity after time away. But the next figure made accessibility his identity. He answered letters, telephoned strangers, and turned encouragement into a public service, until the locked door of an exercise studio triggered a mystery. Number 9. Richard Simmons. Richard Simmons spent decades telling strangers they deserved to be seen. Then his request not to be seen became a boundary the public struggled to respect. His persona was built on access. Through talk shows, exercise programs, letters, and telephone calls, Simmons offered encouragement to people who felt excluded from fitness culture. The sequins and comedy attracted attention, but the work underneath was direct. He listened to stories of shame, illness, and discouragement, maintaining contact beyond the camera. That openness created an impossible expectation. Simmons must always be available as himself. By 2014, after knee problems and decades of performance, he withdrew from public appearances. Silence produced rumors, investigations, and a podcast about him. Simmons maintained that he was safe and choosing privacy. The boundary should have ended the mystery. Instead, his absence became another form of content. Acquaintances were asked to explain him. Rest was treated as evidence requiring interpretation. He had spent years teaching audiences to recognize personal dignity, then had to defend it without appearing. Simmons passed away in 2024, leaving no villain behind, only the unsettling economics of emotional access. The next pioneer solved a different television problem with cameras, film, and ownership. His innovation created the rerun fortune studios would collect. Yet the empire built from that foresight became the burden he chose to sell. Number 10. Desi Arnaz. Desi Arnaz understood television's future before network executives did, but recognizing the value of ownership did not prevent that ownership from consuming his life. CBS resisted producing I Love Lucy in Hollywood. Arnaz and Lucille Ball accepted risk to film the series before an audience using multiple cameras and 35mm film. Their company retained ownership of the episodes. That decision helped make reruns durable and turned Desilu into a power behind shows far beyond the Ricardos. The achievement carried arithmetic. Arnaz performed, produced, negotiated with sponsors, supervised schedules, and managed a studio while his marriage deteriorated. After their 1960 divorce, the couple continued their business relationship. In 1962, Ball bought Arnaz's interest in Desilu for $2.5 million, becoming the first woman to lead a television studio. Arnaz did not disappear. He produced The Mothers-in-Law, made appearances, and remains connected to entertainment. What he surrendered was command of the institution he had built. The sale was less a flight from failure than a recognition that ownership can become an obligation. His pragmatism converted control into an exit. The next man discovered purpose through a question rather than a contract. After portraying a frontier lawman in 40 episodes a season, he traveled to an African hospital, where a physician asked what he intended to do with the rest of his life. Number 11. Hugh O'Brien. Hugh O'Brien wore Wyatt Earp's badge on television, but one question in an African hospital forced him to consider whether portraying leadership was the same as practicing it. During the life and legend of Wyatt Earp, O'Brien traveled to Lambaréné, Gabon, and spent 9 days with physician Albert Schweitzer. The contrast was clear. Hollywood manufactured frontier heroism on schedule, while Schweitzer's hospital confronted human need. Before O'Brien departed, Schweitzer asked, "What are you going to do with all of this?" O'Brien answered with an institution. In 1958, he founded Hugh O'Brien Youth Leadership, bringing high school sophomores together with prominent leaders. The purpose was not celebrity worship. It was to teach young people to think independently and recognize their capacity for service. The organization reports that more than 500,000 students have participated. He did not abandon acting. O'Brien continued appearing in films and television, even returning to Wyatt Earp decades later. What changed was the destination of his fame. Celebrity became a resource he could redirect rather than an identity he had to protect. One question had widened his life beyond a soundstage. The next woman required no missionary encounter to recognize her limit. After 19 seasons behind the same saloon doors, she gave Hollywood a 6-word explanation and devoted her reclaimed time to animals that could never deliver ratings. Number 12. Amanda Blake. Amanda Blake did not leave Gunsmoke because of a secret feud or ultimatum. Her explanation was simple and revealing. "I was tired, and it was time to go." For 19 seasons, Miss Kitty Russell stood behind the Long Branch bar as one of television's familiar women. That stability required industrial repetition. Hundreds of episodes, costumes, relationships, and a character whose future could advance only as far as the series permitted. By 1974, Blake was ready to reclaim a calendar organized around something other than Dodge City. She left before the 20th season. But she did not renounce acting. Blake accepted television work and returned as Miss Kitty in the 1987 movie Gunsmoke: Return to Dodge. The truth is quieter than claims of permanent disappearance. She stopped allowing production to occupy the center of her life. Animals occupied that center. Blake supported animal welfare organizations and devoted attention to captive wildlife. The work replaced the rewards of ratings with responsibilities that existed whether cameras arrived or not. Exhaustion rarely produces a Hollywood ending. Sometimes it produces a sentence, a cleared dressing room, and 19 years visible as time spent. The next actress also escaped a role America could not separate from her face. But instead of rejecting that recognition, she quietly carried it into churches, convention halls, and a practical business life. Number 13. Donna Douglas. Donna Douglas could not remove Ellie Mae Clampett from America's memory. so she made the decision to stop treating typecasting as an insult. The Beverly Hillbillies ended in 1971 after 9 seasons. Its syndication life meant Douglas's face remained visible even when roles did not arrive. Hollywood had compressed her into a package: blonde hair, denim, animals, and rural innocence. Fighting that image would have required her to keep answering to the same industry that created the limitation. Douglas chose another economy. Rooted in her Christian faith, she sang gospel music, spoke at churches and conventions, wrote children's books, and appeared at events. She accepted that audiences loved Ellie Mae while keeping her identity separate from the character. She returned for reunion projects and screen roles, making "Walked Away Forever" another exaggeration. There is pragmatism in refusing to regard an appearance as an audition. Douglas used familiarity as employment, not evidence that she owed Hollywood another reinvention. The stereotype had narrowed her acting possibilities, but it did not have to narrow her life. The figure carried a relationship with control. For 12 seasons, he inspected scripts and performances while commanding a police drama thousands of miles from Hollywood. When the cameras stopped, he returned to painting, and the fortune left behind would reveal how he had separated celebrity from possession. Number 14. Jack Lord. Jack Lord appeared to possess authority as Steve McGarrett, yet the discipline that controlled Hawaii Five-0 could not control time. For 12 seasons, Lord carried the series from Honolulu, far from Hollywood's usual production base. Colleagues remembered his attention to scripts, performances, and conduct. CBS benefited from that rigor because McGarrett's certainty became the program's signature. But maintaining authority across a weekly drama also made work inseparable from identity. When the series ended in 1980, Lord declined another screen career. He remained in Hawaii with Marie, guarded his privacy, and returned to painting, an interest that predated his fame. Later years brought cognitive decline, making the contrast poignant. The actor identified with perfect command required protection from public view. Lord passed away in 1998. After Marie's death in 2005, their estate, roughly $40 million, was distributed among Hawaiian charities. The fortune accumulated through celebrity did not finance a monument to celebrity. It moved into hospitals, hospices, cultural institutions, and community services. That choice gives his withdrawal a resilient final meaning. Control had begun as a professional weapon and ended as stewardship. Yet across all 14 stories, one question remains unresolved. When the studio gate closed, what did each performer truly recover, and what part of them stayed behind, preserved on film, earning money for systems they no longer served? Perhaps the symbol is the contract Wayne Rogers never signed, an empty line Hollywood mistook for obedience. Around that line gather 14 reckonings: an Emmy that could not create opportunity, a desk left behind, a Western badge exchanged for service, a sequined identity defended by silence, and a fortune redirected into hospitals. Hollywood was never cruel, and these performers were never victims. The system was transactional. It rewarded what was repeated, insured, advertised, and owned, then called it loyalty. The images remain young because film does not age. The people behind them did, and freedom began when they accepted that difference. I'm Ann from Hollywood, Ann 268. When you next watch a beloved classic, will you see only the character or the human being negotiating for life beyond the frame?
Hi everyone, thanks for watching. I hope you have a wonderful day.